Today, I want to speak to the part of you that feels tired from thinking too much about tomorrow, the part of you that smiles in front of others, but quietly carries pressure in your chest, the part of you that keeps trying to stay strong, keep everything together, keep every detail under control, and yet still feels like peace is always just out of reach. Maybe you have been carrying silent fears. Fear of what will happen next, fear of what you cannot predict, fear of losing something important, fear of making the wrong decision, fear that you are behind in life, fear that if you stop holding everything together, everything will fall apart. And today, God wants to interrupt that fear with something stronger than your anxiety. He wants to remind you that you were never meant to carry life alone. You were never created to be your own savior. You were never asked to control every outcome, solve every problem, or force every door open with your own strength. God is saying to you today, relax, breathe, let go of the pressure. What I have for you is not slipping away. What I promised you is not lost. What belongs to you in my will is already moving in your direction. You do not have to panic your way into peace. You do not have to worry your way into blessings. You do not have to exhaust yourself trying to force what only my hand can release. There is a perfect time for every answer, a perfect time for every open door, a perfect time for every healing, a perfect time for every connection, every restoration, every breakthrough, every new beginning. And the God who formed your life with wisdom is not confused about your future. He is not late. He is not uncertain. He is not trying to figure out what to do with your story. He already knows. So if your heart has been restless, if your mind has been racing, if your soul has been heavy, stay with me through this message, because this is not just about feeling better for a moment. This is about learning how to surrender. This is about learning how to trust again. This is about learning how to live with peace in a world that constantly pushes fear. This is about learning how to rest in God even while life is still unfolding. And before we go further, I want you to make a quiet decision in your heart. Decide that for these moments, you will stop arguing with peace. Stop feeding your fear. Stop replaying the worst-case scenario. Stop assuming the future will collapse just because you cannot see the full picture yet. Decide to open your heart to the possibility that God is already working in ways you cannot measure. Decide to believe that His care for you is deeper than your current understanding. There are many people who wake up already exhausted, not because their day has started badly, but because their mind began working before their feet even touched the floor. Before the morning has even fully begun, their thoughts are already somewhere else. What if this goes wrong? What if I fail? What if I never recover? What if I am too late? What if nothing changes? What if this pain never ends? And in that moment, the day has not even started, but peace has already been pushed aside. This is one of the greatest battles many people fight. Not always a visible battle, not always something others can see, but an inner battle, a battle for peace, a battle between surrender and control, a battle between faith and fear. And God is calling you back to something simple but powerful. He is calling you back to today. One of the reasons anxiety becomes so heavy is because it pulls you out of the moment God has given you and throws you into moments that do not even exist yet. It makes you emotionally live in a future that has not arrived. It makes you suffer conversations that have not happened, losses that have not occurred, disappointments that are still imaginary, and outcomes that may never come at all. Meanwhile, the breath in your lungs right now is real. The presence of God with you right now is real. The grace available for this moment is real. The strength for today is real. God gives daily grace, not imaginary grace for all possible futures at once. Daily grace, daily bread, daily strength, daily mercy, daily peace. And one of the reasons you feel overwhelmed is because you are trying to carry tomorrow with today's strength. You were never meant to do that. The soul cannot breathe well when it is trying to live too many days at once. That is why the voice of God so often calls us back from panic into presence, back from striving into trust, back from obsession into rest, not because responsibility is wrong, but because fear makes a terrible master. Planning can be wise, but worry is never your provider. Concern may alert you, but anxiety will consume you if you let it lead. You can spend hours trying to mentally control the future and still not add 1 ounce of security to your life. You can rehearse fear over and over again and still not prevent pain. You can imagine every disaster and still not guarantee safety. All anxiety does is rob today while pretending it is protecting tomorrow. God has something better for you than that. He wants you to live awake to His presence in the current moment, to recognize that even now, while your life is still unfinished, He is here. Even now, while some prayers are still unanswered, He is here. Even now, while you are still in the middle of becoming, healing, rebuilding, waiting, learning, growing, and trusting, He is here. You do not have to know everything to have peace today. You only need to know who is with you. And when that truth settles deeply in the heart, something begins to change. The mind may still try to run, but the spirit learns to return. Return to truth. Return to prayer. Return to stillness. Return to trust. Return to the quiet confidence that says, God is already where I am going. Think about that for a moment. The place you fear, God is already there. The conversation you dread, God is already there. The season you cannot predict, God is already there. The door you are waiting on, the valley you do not understand, the next chapter you cannot yet read, God is already there. So why should the unknown terrify you when it is already known by Him? This does not mean life will always be easy. It does not mean there will be no waiting, no tears, no stretching, no discomfort. But it does mean this: nothing catches God by surprise. Nothing in your story has escaped His sight. Nothing is outside His ability to use, redeem, transform, and guide. That is why peace is possible, even before answers arrive. Many people think peace only comes when problems disappear. But the peace of God is different. It is not fragile. It does not depend on perfect conditions. It does not wait for every loose end to be tied up. It can meet you in the middle of uncertainty. It can sit with you in the middle of unanswered questions. It can remain with you when life does not make sense. That kind of peace is not produced by control. It is received through surrender. So maybe today is the day you stop asking, how can I control every outcome? And start asking, how can I trust God more deeply in this moment? Maybe today is the day you let yourself enjoy what is in front of you instead of losing it to fear. The morning light, the quiet minute, the warm drink in your hand, the voice of someone you love, the chance to begin again, the strength that is still in you, the kindness God has already shown you, the simple gifts you keep missing because your mind is always somewhere else. There are holy moments hidden in ordinary life, but anxiety makes us blind to them. God wants to open your eyes again. He wants you to notice that not everything is broken, not everything is collapsing, not everything is against you. There is still beauty, there is still provision, there is still breath, there is still time, there is still purpose, there is still hope. And even where pain is real, it is not final. That is why gratitude becomes such a powerful weapon against fear. Gratitude does not deny difficulty. It simply refuses to let darkness be the only thing you see. It reminds the soul that God has been faithful before. It reminds the heart that goodness still exists even in imperfect seasons. It anchors you in what is true instead of letting your mind drift into imagined disaster. When you thank God for today, your heart begins to relax in His care. Not because every issue is solved, but because you remember you are not abandoned. So, if your mind has been racing lately, bring it back. Bring it back to this breath. Bring it back to this truth. Bring it back to this moment. God is here. God is faithful. God is not late. God is not confused. God is not distant. And your future is safer in His hands than it would ever be in yours. Now let us go deeper, because if you are going to truly release anxiety, you need more than positive thoughts. You need connection with God. You need prayer, not as a last resort, but as a living place of refuge. There is something beautiful that happens when a person stops performing strength and starts being honest before God. When the polished words fall away, when the religious language falls away, when the soul simply says, Lord, I am tired. Lord, I am afraid. Lord, I do not know what to do. Lord, I need you. That kind of prayer changes things. Not always because circumstances immediately shift, but because your heart does. Prayer lifts the burden of self-reliance. It reminds you that the weight you are carrying was never meant to stay on your shoulders. It becomes a holy exchange. You bring your fear, and God gives peace. You bring your questions, and God gives presence. You bring your weakness, and God gives strength. You bring your tears, and God gives comfort. Sometimes people avoid prayer because they think they have to say the right thing. But prayer is not about impressing God. It is about opening yourself to Him. It is about relationship. It is about trust. It is about bringing the truth of your inner world into the presence of the one who already sees it. And one of the reasons prayer is so powerful is because it breaks the illusion that everything depends on you. When you pray, you are not just speaking words into the air. You are stepping out of the center of control and placing God back where He belongs. You are saying, Lord, this situation is not bigger than you. This fear is not stronger than your peace. This confusion is not beyond your wisdom. This pain is not outside your reach. I do not understand everything, but I choose to bring it to you rather than letting it consume me. That is where peace begins to grow. Peace often enters quietly. It may not always feel dramatic. Sometimes it comes like a soft release in the chest. Sometimes it comes like the mind slowly settling. Sometimes it comes like tears falling while you realize you do not have to hold yourself together anymore. Sometimes it comes like a sentence from Scripture suddenly becoming alive. Sometimes it comes like a deep breath after hours of tension. Sometimes it comes like the simple awareness that you are not alone in the room. But however it comes, it is real. And the more you build a life of honest prayer, the more your inner world becomes less ruled by panic and more shaped by peace. This does not mean you will never feel anxious again. It means anxiety will no longer be the loudest voice. Prayer will teach your heart where to go when fear rises. Instead of spiraling, you will return. Instead of drowning in thought, you will speak with God. Instead of carrying everything silently, you will release it. There is also power in gratitude during prayer. Not fake gratitude that denies struggle, but real gratitude that remembers God's faithfulness in the middle of it. When you thank Him for past protection, your faith for present help increases. When you remember what He has already brought you through, you stop acting as though the current moment is the first hard thing He has ever seen. He has carried you before. He has sustained you before. He has opened doors before. He has comforted you before. He has made a way before. So why would this moment be the one that defeats His ability to help you? Prayer helps you remember. It reminds the soul that God is not just an idea. He is present, active, caring, involved, near, listening, responding, working. And some of you listening need to hear this clearly. You do not need to wait until you feel strong to pray. You pray because you are weak. You do not need to wait until you have full faith to pray. You pray because you want more faith. You do not need to clean up your thoughts before coming to God. You come to Him with the mess. That is the point. He is not intimidated by your honesty. If anything, your honesty is what opens the door for deeper healing. So let your prayer life become less about performance and more about surrender. Less about polished speeches and more about real relationship. Less about trying to sound spiritual and more about bringing your actual heart before God. Tell Him what scares you. Tell Him what hurts. Tell Him where you are disappointed. Tell Him where you feel behind. Tell Him where you are trying to control too much. Tell Him where you are tired of pretending everything is fine. And then listen, because prayer is not only about speaking, it is also about becoming still enough to receive. Sometimes God will guide you through Scripture, sometimes through a quiet conviction, sometimes through a deep inner sense of peace, sometimes through patience, sometimes through wise counsel, sometimes through the simple assurance that He is asking you to keep walking one day at a time. Not every answer comes instantly, but every real prayer plants something: faith, peace, trust, endurance, clarity, humility, dependence, strength. The soul that prays becomes different over time. Now, let us talk about the weight many people carry for years without realizing how heavy it has become. Some people are not only anxious about the future, they are burdened by the past, burdened by regrets, mistakes, wounds, disappointments, betrayals, and unresolved pain. Burdened by expectations they never met, burdened by what others said about them, burdened by shame, burdened by guilt, burdened by memories that still sting. It is amazing how long people can function while carrying invisible stones in their spirit. They smile, work, talk, show up, keep moving, and yet deep down, they are exhausted. God never asked you to carry those stones forever. There is a reason surrender is mentioned so often in the life of faith, because surrender is not weakness. It is wisdom. It is the recognition that some burdens become toxic when carried too long. You cannot heal while clenching everything. You cannot rest while gripping every fear. You cannot receive peace while refusing to release what poisons your heart. There comes a moment when the soul has to say, "Lord, I cannot keep carrying this the way I have been. This pain, this pressure, this resentment, this sorrow, this disappointment, this need to control every outcome, this fear of being hurt again, this need to figure everything out. I give it to you." And that moment matters. because release is often the beginning of healing. When you hold on to fear, it feels familiar, but it is still fear. When you hold on to control, it feels safer, but it is still bondage. When you hold on to pain, it may feel justified, but it still drains life from your spirit. God invites you into something lighter. Jesus offers rest not just for the body, but for the soul. That means he understands exhaustion beyond sleep. He understands emotional heaviness, mental fatigue, spiritual weariness, the kind of tiredness that remains even after a full night in bed, because the deeper issue is not physical. It is internal, and the soul does not recover by pretending it is fine. It recovers by bringing its true condition into the healing presence of God. So what is the burden you need to release today? Maybe it is the burden of trying to be enough in your own strength. Maybe it is the burden of making everything happen. Maybe it is the burden of somebody else's opinion. Maybe it is the burden of a closed door you still do not understand. Maybe it is the burden of a prayer that seems delayed. Maybe it is the burden of wanting immediate answers. Maybe it is the burden of carrying wounds you never fully gave to God. Name it. Do not hide it behind vague language. Name it, because what stays unnamed often stays unhealed. Then bring it honestly before the Lord. And after you bring it, do not snatch it back. That is what many people do. They pray for a moment, then go right back to mentally carrying the same weight as though God heard nothing. But surrender means trusting that once it is placed in His hands, you no longer have to obsess over it every hour. This is where faith becomes real. Faith is not merely believing that God exists. Faith is entrusting real burdens to Him, real fears, real questions, real outcomes. And the more you do that, the more your inner life begins to shift. Instead of rehearsing worry, you begin to rehearse truth. Instead of replaying fear, you begin to repeat God's promises. Instead of speaking panic over your future, you begin to say, God is with me. God is guiding me. God is working. God is enough. God knows. God cares. God will make a way. That inner language matters, because eventually, what you repeat becomes what shapes you. Now there is another area where many people struggle. They want to trust God, but only if they understand every step. And that is one of the hardest places of spiritual growth, because trusting God fully means accepting that His wisdom is greater than your understanding. Human nature wants certainty. It wants a map. It wants clarity before obedience. It wants guarantees before movement. It wants the whole story before taking the first step. But that is rarely how God works. Often, He gives enough light for the next step, not the whole staircase. And this is where faith either matures or resists. You may be standing at a crossroads right now, wondering which direction to go, wondering if you missed your moment, wondering whether to wait, move, stay, begin, release, forgive, rebuild, or start over. And the frustration comes from wanting immediate certainty. But God does not always lead by explaining everything. Sometimes He leads by asking for trust. This is difficult for the mind that wants control, but it is beautiful for the heart that learns surrender. Because once you stop needing to know everything in advance, you become far more available to the peace of God. There is great freedom in admitting that your understanding is limited and His is not. Your vision is partial. His is complete. You see this week. He sees the years ahead. You see the closed door. He sees the protection behind it. You see the delay. He sees the preparation. You see the silence. He sees the work being done underground. You see the loss. He sees the future purpose that can emerge from it. Trusting God does not mean you never ask questions. It means your questions no longer become rebellion. It means you can say, Lord, I do not understand, but I still believe you are good. I do not see the way, but I trust that you do. I do not know why this happened, but I trust that you will not waste it. I do not feel strong, but I trust that you are enough. That kind of trust changes everything. It removes the crushing pressure of self-direction. It frees you from the false belief that peace depends on your ability to predict every outcome. It teaches you how to walk with God instead of merely asking Him to approve your own plan. And sometimes, the most spiritual thing you can do is stop trying to force clarity and simply become obedient in what you already know. Be faithful where you are. Pray where you are. Obey in what is clear. Wait without panic. Move when peace leads. Let God be God. You are not failing because you do not know the whole path. You are growing. Now, let us talk about patience, because this is where many hearts become restless. Waiting can feel uncomfortable, especially when you are praying for something that matters deeply. It can feel like life is happening for everyone else while you remain in a season of uncertainty. It can feel like silence means absence, like delay means denial, like unanswered prayers. But none of that is necessarily true. There are things God can only build in the waiting. Patience is not passive suffering. It is active trust. It is the decision to remain anchored in God even when outcomes are still unfolding. It is the refusal to panic just because life has not moved at the speed you expected. It is the strength to believe that God is still working when the evidence feels incomplete. Many people damage their own peace because they interpret every delay as a threat. But what if some delays are protection? What if some delays are preparation? What if some delays are mercy? What if God, in His kindness, is refusing to hand you something before the right time? Because the right time matters just as much as the right thing. A blessing outside of God's timing can become a burden. So when you wait, do not assume nothing is happening. Seeds grow in hidden places. Roots deepen in silence. Character forms in unseen moments. Trust matures when control is no longer available. And some of the strongest people in faith are not the ones who got instant answers, but the ones who learned how to remain steady while waiting. Silence also becomes important here, because if your life is full of noise, fear will always find room to speak loudly. The world constantly feeds urgency. Hurry, compare, react, chase, prove, fix, control, perform, respond. Keep up, do not fall behind. But the voice of God often calls you into a different rhythm. Be still, breathe, listen, rest, wait, trust. There are some things you will never hear from God because your inner world is too noisy, not because He is absent, but because you have left no room for quiet. Silence can feel uncomfortable at first, especially if you are used to constant distraction. But silence is where hidden fears come to the surface. Silence is where the soul becomes honest. Silence is where many illusions break. Silence is where you begin to notice how tired you really are. Silence is where your need for God becomes impossible to ignore. And silence is where peace often grows. The still heart hears more clearly. The hurried heart misses much. So create room for stillness. Put down the noise. Step away from the endless input. Sit in God's presence without always asking for immediate solutions. Let your soul breathe. Let your thoughts settle. Let Scripture wash over your heart. Let prayer become slower, deeper, simpler, more real. You do not always need a dramatic spiritual experience. Sometimes you need a quiet one. Sometimes what heals you is not noise, but rest. Now I want to speak to the person who feels emotionally and spiritually exhausted. You have tried to stay strong. You have pushed yourself. You have carried more than others know. And somewhere along the way, you began to feel tired in a deeper way. Not just physically tired, soul tired, hope tired, and maybe you are wondering whether you can keep going. Hear this clearly. God knows how to renew what has become weak. He knows how to strengthen what has been worn down. He knows how to breathe life into the tired places. There is a kind of strength that does not come from pushing harder. It comes from depending more deeply on God. Many people think they must always be full of energy to be spiritually strong. But real strength is not about constant emotional intensity. It is about staying connected to the source of life even when you feel empty. God renews in ways the world cannot. The world says rest after you finish proving yourself. God says, come to me because you cannot do this without me. The world says, keep striving or you will fall behind. God says, those who wait on me will be renewed. The world says, hide your weakness. God says, my power is made strong there. This changes the way you see your own tiredness. Instead of being ashamed of it, you let it become the place where you meet God more honestly. Instead of resenting your limits, you let them teach you dependence. Instead of panicking when you feel weak, you begin to remember that weakness is not the end of the story. God can meet you there. Like an eagle carried by currents it did not create, you can be lifted by strength that does not come from you. You do not have to fight every wind with panic. Some storms become the very thing God uses to raise you higher. That does not mean storms are pleasant. It means they are not meaningless. And if you are in a storm now, do not assume it is proof that God left. Sometimes it is the very place where He teaches you to rise differently. There are people listening right now who are tired because they have been trying to survive everything through human effort alone. They have tried to think their way out, manage their way out, control their way out, impress their way out, and hold everything together with their own strength. But God is inviting you into a different way. Stop trying to be enough without Him. Stop acting as though your strength must carry your whole life. Stop believing that asking for help from God is failure. It is not failure. It is wisdom. It is faith. When you allow God to renew you, you stop living on fumes. You stop performing energy you do not actually have. You stop pretending that you are fine while your soul is running dry. And slowly, peace begins to replace pressure. Then, there is another truth that many people need to hear. Some battles are not yours to fight. This is hard for strong people to accept. It is hard for people who take responsibility seriously. It is hard for people who feel they must solve everything. It is hard for people who panic when they cannot fix the problem immediately. But not every battle is meant to be fought in your own strength. Some battles belong to God. That does not mean passivity. It means proper surrender. There are situations where your constant mental struggle is not producing progress. It is only draining you. There are conflicts where your obsession with outcomes is not helping. It is only deepening fear. There are burdens where your endless effort has become a substitute for trust. God is saying, let me fight this with wisdom beyond your own. Think of how often fear makes you rush into emotional battle mode. You start preparing arguments, worst-case scenarios, defenses, reactions, strategies, and all the ways you will survive the thing you dread. But meanwhile, your peace collapses, your joy disappears, your sleep is affected, your body tightens, your heart grows heavy. You are fighting mentally before the real battle has even begun. What if instead you brought the battle to God? What if you said, "Lord, I will be faithful, but I refuse to carry this as though everything depends on me. I will do what you ask, but I will not surrender my peace to fear. I will act wisely, but I will not act from panic. I trust you to defend, guide, expose, protect, open, close, and intervene as needed." That kind of prayer is powerful because some victories come not through your ability to overpower the situation, but through your willingness to remain calm while God moves. You have seen this before in your own life, even if you did not realize it. There were moments you thought would destroy you, and yet God carried you through. There were moments you thought had no solution, and somehow a way opened. There were moments when you did not know what to do, and later you realized God had been working behind the scenes the whole time. He is still that same God now. So stop making yourself the savior of every problem. You are called to faithfulness, not omnipotence. You are called to obedience, not total control. You are called to trust, not endless panic. Now I want to speak about rest in the presence of Jesus, because this is deeply personal. There are many people who believe in God, but still live as though comfort is something they must manufacture by themselves. They carry spiritual truth in the mind, but do not know how to sit under it long enough for it to become rest in the heart. Jesus invites you closer than that. He does not merely offer advice. He offers himself, not a concept, not a vague comfort. Himself. That means rest is not only a principle, it is relational. When Jesus says, "Come to me," he is inviting you into closeness, into shared burden, into companionship, into the kind of nearness where you stop facing life as though you are emotionally alone. This matters deeply because many people are not just anxious, they are lonely in their anxiety. They feel isolated in their struggles. They think nobody truly understands the weight they carry. But Jesus does. He understands sorrow. He understands tears. He understands betrayal. He understands deep anguish. He understands what it means to pray in pain. So when he tells you to come, it is not a shallow invitation. It comes from one who has known suffering and remains full of compassion. Resting in him means letting his presence become more real to you than your panic. It means sitting with his words until they begin to soften your inner tension. It means speaking with him during the ordinary hours, not only in crisis. It means letting your soul lean, not just believe. It means choosing relationship over religious routine. There are moments when your greatest spiritual need is not more information, but more abiding, more nearness, more stillness in his presence, more time allowing his love to quiet what fear has agitated. If you have been trying to carry everything alone, hear him again. Come, not when you're perfect, not when your faith is impressive, not when the whole situation is solved. Now, come tired, come confused, come dremeling, come disappointed, come worn out, come hopeful and hurting at the same time. Come as you are, because Jesus knows how to hold what you cannot. Now, let us go higher. There is deep peace in recognizing the sovereignty of God. This means more than saying God is powerful. It means allowing that truth to reshape your emotional life. It means understanding that the God who holds the universe has not lost grip on your story. It means remembering that chaos around you does not mean chaos above you. It means believing that while your perspective may be limited, His rule is not. Many people lose peace because they live as though current circumstances are the highest authority in their life. If the situation looks bad, they assume all is bad. If the path looks blocked, they assume the future is blocked. If the storm is loud, they assume God must be far away. But sovereignty corrects that illusion. God is still God when life is unclear. God is still God when prayers feel delayed. God is still God when plans fall apart. God is still God when your emotions are unstable. God is still God when the world feels loud. God is still God when you do not know what comes next. And because He is still God, you can be still too. Not careless, not passive, but deeply anchored. There is a kind of stillness that comes when a person finally stops acting as though they must understand everything before they can trust. They begin to say, Lord, you are on the throne even here. You are sovereign even here. You are wise even here. You are present even here. That kind of faith produces calm in the middle of noise. The outer world may still feel uncertain, but the inner world becomes steadier. You begin to realize that not everything requires panic. You begin to realize that being emotionally frantic does not make you spiritually prepared. You begin to realize that surrender is not giving up. It is handing over the illusion of control so you can receive real peace. This is powerful because once the soul accepts that God is truly sovereign, it no longer reacts to every disruption as though all hope is lost. It learns to pause, to breathe, to pray, to wait, to trust, to say, I do not know what God is doing, but I know He is not absent. Now there is another healing truth that must be spoken clearly. Everything in your life can have purpose in God's hands. Not everything is good in itself. Pain is real, betrayal is real, loss is real, injustice is real, grief is real, disappointment is real, but none of it is beyond redemption in the hands of God. That changes the way you view your story. You stop seeing yourself only as someone harmed by circumstances and begin to see that God is still able to write meaning into the broken places. You begin to understand that some chapters make sense only later. Some tears water the ground for future strength. Some closed doors redirect you away from things that would have harmed you. Some seasons of hiddenness prepare you for things your earlier self could not yet carry. When you trust that God can work through all things, despair loses some of its power. You begin to ask different questions. Not only why is this happening, but Lord, how will you use this? What are you forming in me? What are you protecting me from? What are you teaching me? What kind of person are you shaping through this process? These are not easy questions, but they are holy ones because they move you from bitterness into openness. They move you from accusation into surrender. They move you from despair into expectation. God may not explain everything right away. Sometimes He does not explain at all. But He does not need to explain everything in order to be trustworthy. His character is enough. His faithfulness is enough. His love is enough. His wisdom is enough. Some of the strongest testimonies are born from seasons that made no sense at first. That may be true for you one day too. So do not rush to label your current pain as wasted. God is not wasteful with surrendered lives. Even the parts you wish had never happened can become places of deep healing, compassion, strength, wisdom, humility, and purpose when laid in His hands. Now, I want to speak tenderly to the person whose heart feels bruised. There are seasons when life does not just make you anxious, it breaks you a little. There are disappointments that crack the confidence you once had. There are losses that leave silence where joy used to be. There are wounds that no one really sees. There are tears that fall in private. There are nights when the ache feels heavier because no one is around to distract you from it. And in those moments, one of the enemy's cruelest lies is this: God is far from you now. But that is not true. God is especially near to the brokenhearted, not far, near, not irritated by your pain, near, not tired of your tears, near, not waiting for you to stop hurting before He cares, near. This matters because broken people often feel ashamed of how fragile they have become. They think they should be over it by now. They think faith should make them feel strong all the time. They think grief, fear, sadness, or exhaustion must mean they are failing spiritually. But God does not measure you with that cruelty. He meets you with compassion. He sees the invisible pain. He sees the effort it takes just to keep going some days. He sees the courage hidden in your survival. He sees the prayers you could barely form. He sees the moments you almost gave up, but did not. And He stays near. When your heart is wounded, God does not demand a perfect performance. He offers presence. He offers comfort. He offers steady love. He offers the kind of nearness that does not always remove pain immediately, but keeps pain from turning into total despair. Some of you need to know that being tender is not the same as being weak. A heart that still longs for God while hurting is not weak, it is precious. A person who still turns toward Him through tears is not failing. They are brave. A soul that keeps whispering, "Help me," is already practicing faith. Let God be close to your pain. Stop hiding a wound from the very one who can heal it. Bring Him your heartbreak. Bring Him your loneliness. Bring Him the thing you keep calling small, but that still hurts deeply. Bring Him the old wound that gets touched every time a new disappointment happens. Bring Him the fear beneath the fear. He already knows, and He is not turning away. Now I want to speak about holy rest again, because there is a deeper level of rest than many people realize. There is physical rest, and that matters. But there is also spiritual rest, the kind that comes when you stop striving to earn what can only be received by grace. The kind that comes when you stop trying to force life into place and begin to trust that God is already at work. The kind that enters the heart when you no longer define your worth by your productivity, your speed, your achievements, or your ability to control everything. This kind of rest changes the way you live. It does not make you lazy, it makes you free. You still work, but not with panic. You still plan, but not with obsession. You still care, but not with the destructive fear. You still move forward, but not as someone trying to outrun insecurity. That is a different way of living. It is the life of a person who knows they are held by God. The world glorifies constant pressure, but God does not. He knows human limits because He created them. He knows you are not meant to live in endless internal tension. He knows the body and mind eventually reveal what the soul has been carrying too long. So, if you have been living as though rest is a reward you only deserve, when every task is done, you may never rest. Because life on earth is never fully finished. There will always be another concern, another issue, another goal, another uncertainty. At some point, You must learn to rest in God before everything is resolved. You must learn to say, Lord, there are unfinished things in my life, but I am still allowed to sleep. There are unanswered prayers, but I am still allowed to breathe. There are open questions, but I am still allowed to trust. There are real responsibilities, but I will not worship pressure. That is holy freedom. And for many of you, that is the word you need: freedom. Freedom from compulsive overthinking, freedom from emotional over-responsibility, freedom from the need to control every opinion, every detail, every future outcome, freedom from carrying what God asked you to surrender, freedom from the lie that anxiety is proof you care more, freedom from the belief that peace must be postponed until life becomes perfect. You can begin living differently now, not because everything is easy, but because God is trustworthy. And maybe that is the thread running through all of this. Not that you are strong enough, not that life is simple, not that your questions are all answered, but that God is trustworthy. Trustworthy in delay, trustworthy in confusion, trustworthy in pain, trustworthy in waiting, trustworthy in weakness, trustworthy in abundance, trustworthy in uncertainty, trustworthy when you feel full of faith, trustworthy when your faith feels like a whisper. If you truly grasp that, your whole inner world changes. You stop living like an orphan and begin living like someone cared for. You stop facing the future as though you are abandoned and begin walking as someone guided. You stop panicking every time life bends in an unexpected direction and begin asking, Lord, how are you leading me here? This is maturity in faith, not the absence of emotion, but the presence of deeper trust, not pretending fear never comes, but learning where to take it, not becoming a person who never struggles, but becoming a person who knows how to return to God again and again. And that return matters, because peace is often not a one-time achievement. It is a repeated return to truth. Return when the night feels heavy. Return when your heart aches. Return when uncertainty rises. Return when old fears awaken. Return in prayer. Return in silence. Return in worship. Return in truth. Return in surrender. Every return weakens fear's authority. Every return strengthens trust. Every return reminds your soul where home really is. Now, I want to speak directly to your future for a moment. There may be things ahead that you cannot yet see. Some will surprise you. Some will stretch you. Some will bless you. Some may hurt. Some may heal. Some will open new doors. Some will close old chapters. But whatever lies ahead, hear this clearly. God will already be there. You will not arrive in any future moment before His presence does. You will not walk into any unknown season without His knowledge. You will not face any real need beyond His ability to provide. You will not enter any valley where His hand cannot sustain you. This matters because fear always tries to isolate you in imagination. It makes you picture future struggles without future grace. It makes you imagine tomorrow without God in it. But that is a lie. Your future will not be godless. It will not be graceless. It will not be merciless. It will not be wisdomless. Whatever tomorrow brings, it will still contain God. And that means tomorrow does not have the right to terrify you today. Will there still be moments of uncertainty? Yes. Will there still be seasons that require courage? Yes. Will there still be places where faith must grow? Yes. But none of that changes the central truth. God will be faithful, not because you deserve a smooth life, but because He is who He is. And perhaps one of the deepest forms of spiritual maturity is this: learning to relax in God without requiring constant evidence that everything is working out right away. That is powerful faith. It says, I do not need to see the whole harvest to trust the one planting the seed. I do not need full clarity to obey. I do not need instant results to believe God is moving. I do not need a perfect timeline to know His timing is wise. I do not need to control everything to be safe. I belong to God, and that changes how I walk through life. Now, let me speak gently to the person who feels like they have already failed too many times. Maybe you hear messages about trust and peace, but inside you think, that sounds beautiful. But I have messed up too much. I made bad decisions. I let fear lead me. I forced things. I ignored wisdom. I fell apart. I reacted badly. I doubted. I ran ahead of God. I tried to control outcomes and ended up exhausted. If that is you, hear this. The grace of God is not only for the calm and spiritually polished, it is also for the weary, the impulsive, the anxious, the ashamed, the regretful, the ones trying to begin again. God is not inviting a perfect version of you into peace. He is inviting the real one. And your past failures do not disqualify you from present surrender. In fact, they may have prepared you to understand more deeply why you need Him. Some lessons only become real after your own striving has shown you its limits. Some surrender only becomes sincere after your own control has failed you enough times. So do not sit in shame. Come back to God. Not tomorrow, now. Come back with honesty. Come back with humility. Come back with your unfinished heart and your tired mind and your complicated emotions. He already knows the full story, and He is still calling you. There is mercy for this day. There is grace for this moment. There is peace available even now. Now let us slow down and imagine what your life could look like if you truly began living these truths. Imagine waking up and, before fear speaks, you pause and remember that God is with you. Imagine beginning the day not with panic, but with prayer. Imagine feeling anxiety rise, and instead of spiraling immediately, you stop and surrender it. Imagine choosing gratitude before your thoughts turn dark. Imagine trusting that delay is not abandonment. Imagine learning to rest without guilt. Imagine no longer making an idol out of control. Imagine letting silence become a place of healing instead of discomfort. Imagine being able to say, I do not know exactly how this will work out, but I know I am not alone. Imagine the freedom of that. Imagine how much mental energy would return to your life if fear no longer dominated your inner world. Imagine how much peace could grow if you stopped rehearsing worst-case scenarios all day. Imagine how different your relationships could feel if anxiety did not constantly drain you. Imagine the strength that would return if you no longer carried unnecessary emotional weight. This kind of life is not fantasy. It is the fruit of walking with God. Not instantly, perhaps, not perfectly, but truly. And if you feel far from that kind of peace right now, do not be discouraged. Peace often grows gradually as trust is practiced repeatedly. You do not become restful overnight if you have lived in fear for years, but you can begin one surrender at a time, one prayer at a time, one returned thought at a time, one quiet moment at a time. one act of trust at a time, one refusal to panic at a time. That is how new patterns are formed. That is how the soul learns a new rhythm. That is how peace becomes more than a moment and starts becoming a way of life. And through all of it, remember this: God is patient with your process. He is not frustrated that you are still learning trust. He is not annoyed that you still have questions. He is not rolling his eyes at your weakness. He is a father, a shepherd, a savior, a comforter, a faithful God. He leads patiently. He teaches gently. He restores tenderly. He strengthens wisely. He walks with you as you grow. So if you have fallen back into fear 100 times, return 101. If your mind races again tomorrow, return again. If your heart gets heavy next week, return again. Do not measure God's willingness to receive you by your consistency. Measure it by His character. He is faithful, and because He is faithful, you can build your life on Him. Now let these truths settle deeply. You do not have to know every answer right now. You do not have to control every detail. You do not have to carry every burden. You do not have to force every blessing. You do not have to solve tomorrow today. You do not have to be enough in your own strength. You do not have to keep living with your soul clenched. You can breathe. You can surrender. You can rest. You can trust. You can live today without being consumed by tomorrow. You can hand over the battle. You can wait without despair. You can be still without being lazy. You can let God guide what you do not understand. You can be renewed when you are tired. You can be comforted when you are broken. You can be held when you feel weak. You can be carried when the road feels long. You can relax in God's care. And as we begin to close, I want you to hear this as personally as possible. God sees the thing you have not told many people about. He sees the fear you try to hide. He sees the burden you have normalized. He sees the exhaustion beneath your smile. He sees the pressure in your chest. He sees the overthinking. He sees the silent tears. He sees the nights when sleep came late because your mind would not stop. He sees the way you keep trying. He sees the questions you do not know how to phrase. He sees the hope you are afraid to feel again because disappointment hurt last time. He sees all of it, and still He says, "Come closer." Not run farther, not fix yourself first, not carry more. Come closer. I will hold you. I will guide you. I will fight for you. I will comfort you. I will give you peace. I will teach you how to rest. I will show you that my timing is wise. I will not waste your pain. I will not forget what concerns you. I will not stop being faithful just because you are tired. Let those promises sink in. You are not held together by your own strength. You are held by God. That is why you can release the need to grip so tightly. That is why you can let your shoulders drop a little. That is why you can breathe more deeply. That is why you can stop acting as though panic is your protector. It never was. God is your protector. God is your provider. God is your peace. God is your refuge. God is your strength. God is your future. God is your rest. And today, maybe the holiest thing you can do is simply agree with Him. Agree that He is trustworthy. Agree that His timing is better than your panic. Agree that your life is safer in His hands than in your own constant striving. Agree that not everything has to be solved right now. Agree that surrender is not loss, it is freedom. So, as this message settles over you, I want to leave you with a final invitation. Do not leave these words as inspiration only. Turn them into response. If your heart has been carrying too much, surrender it. If your mind has been racing, bring it back to God. If your soul has been tired, rest in His presence. If your future feels uncertain, place it in His hands. If your spirit has been bruised, let Him draw near. If your hope has been thin, ask Him to renew it. If you have been trying to control everything, release it. If you have been afraid, let His love meet that fear. If you have been waiting, keep waiting with trust instead of panic. If you have been broken, let yourself be comforted. If you have been broken, let yourself be comforted. If you have been strong for too long, let yourself be carried. And tonight, or this morning, or whenever you are hearing these words, pause for a moment and let this become your prayer. Lord, I release what I was never meant to carry alone. I surrender the fears I keep feeding. I surrender the future I keep trying to control. I surrender the pressure I have placed on myself. I surrender the wounds I still hold tightly. I surrender the outcomes I cannot force. I surrender the questions I cannot answer. Teach me to trust you. Teach me to rest in you. Teach me to live this day with peace. Teach me to believe that what you have for me will come in the right time and in the right way. Quiet my mind. Strengthen my heart. Heal what is heavy in me. Lead me where I cannot see. Be my peace, my shelter, my wisdom, and my hope. I trust that you are already working. I trust that you are with me. I trust that your plan is good. I trust that your timing is wise. I trust that your love will carry me. Amen. And as you go on from here, carry this truth with you. Relax. Not because life is fully under your control, but because it never needed to be. Relax. Not because every answer has arrived, but because God has. Not because nothing difficult will ever happen, but because nothing difficult can separate you from His care. Relax. Not because the future is clear, but because the one who holds it is faithful. Relax, trust, breathe, surrender. What is meant for you in the will of God is not being delayed by your fear, and it will not be secured by your panic. It will come by His hand, in His wisdom, in His time. So stop tormenting yourself with tomorrow. Return to today. Return to prayer. Return to trust. Return to the quiet confidence that says, my life is in God's hands. And when you live there, peace begins to bloom again. Not fake peace, not temporary distraction. Real peace. Deep peace. Steady peace. The kind of peace that remains even while life is still unfolding. The kind of peace that tells your heart, God is here. The kind of peace that lets you keep walking without needing to know everything. The kind of peace that softens your inner world and gives you room to breathe again. The kind of peace only God can give. Let that peace be yours. Let it fill the anxious places. Let it reach the tired places. Let it settle the restless places. Let it guard your heart. Let it reshape your thoughts. Let it change the way you live. And remember, you are not abandoned in the waiting. You are not forgotten in the silence. You are not unsafe in the unknown. You are not alone in the process. God is with you. God is for you. God is ahead of you. God is beside you. God is still working. God is still speaking. God is still guiding. God is still restoring. God is still faithful. So keep going with peace. Keep praying with honesty. Keep surrendering what feels too heavy. Keep trusting when you do not understand. Keep waiting without panic. Keep living today with gratitude. Keep coming back to God, and little by little, you will discover that the life you once tried to hold together through fear becomes a life carried by peace instead. That is the gift God is offering you today. Receive it, rest in it, walk in it, and let your heart remember again and again that everything God has appointed for your life will arrive in its perfect time. Sometimes the reason you cannot feel peace is not because God has stopped speaking, but because your heart has been trained by fear for too long. Fear has a way of becoming familiar. Even when it hurts, it starts to feel normal. You wake up expecting pressure. You move through the day expecting something to go wrong. You pray, but part of you still braces for disappointment. You hope, but with your hands half closed because you are trying to protect yourself from being hurt again. This is what anxiety often does. It teaches the soul to live guarded. It teaches you to expect trouble before joy, loss before blessing, delay before breakthrough, silence before comfort. And after a while, that way of living becomes so common that peace itself can feel unfamiliar. But God wants to retrain your heart. He wants to teach you that peace is not dangerous. Rest is not irresponsible. Trust is not foolish when it is placed in Him. Hope is not weakness. Surrender is not defeat. These are not fragile things. They are strong things. They are the inner posture of a soul that has stopped worshiping control and started leaning into divine care. You may not change every anxious pattern in one day, but you can begin to create new ones. When fear rises, answer it with truth. When your thoughts start running too far ahead, call them back gently. When your chest tightens with pressure, slow down and remember that God is not rushing you from heaven. When your mind tries to build 1,000 what-ifs, return to one steady truth. God is with me right now. God will be with me then. God has not failed me yet. That is how peace grows stronger, not by pretending fear never comes, but by refusing to let fear be the only voice that leads you. You also need to understand that trusting God does not mean you will never feel emotional pain. It means pain will no longer have the final word over your identity or your future. There will still be seasons when you cry. There will still be moments when you do not understand what He is doing. There will still be chapters where the silence stretches longer than you wanted. But even there, trust changes the atmosphere of the soul. Trust keeps sorrow from turning into hopelessness. Trust keeps delay from turning into despair. Trust keeps uncertainty from becoming complete inner collapse. Trust says, I am hurting, but I am not abandoned. Trust says, I do not understand this, but I still believe God is near. Trust says, this season is difficult, but it will not define the whole story. Trust says, the same God who carried me before will carry me again. That kind of trust becomes like an anchor, not removing the waves, but keeping you from being swept away by them. And there is another area where many people need healing. It is the fear that if they truly relax, they will miss their blessing. As if everything depends on constant pressure. As if resting means falling behind. As if being calm means not caring enough. But many times what blocks peace is the lie that stress is necessary for progress. Stress is not your savior. Panic is not your provider. Restlessness is not what opens doors. God does not need your anxiety to fulfill His will. He is not waiting for you to exhaust yourself before He acts. He is not more impressed by your overthinking than by your faith. He is not asking you to prove your seriousness through inner turmoil. He is inviting you into a different posture, one of alert trust, one of peaceful obedience, one of quiet faithfulness. You can work diligently and still remain inwardly calm. You can pray seriously and still sleep at night. You can care deeply and still refuse to be consumed by fear. You can pursue what matters without turning pressure into your master. That is part of spiritual maturity too, learning that peace and responsibility can live together, learning that stillness and progress are not enemies, learning that trust does not make you passive, it makes you properly aligned. There will always be voices trying to make you hurry, voices from the culture, voices from your own insecurity, voices from old wounds, voices from people who are just as restless as you used to be. But none of those voices should sit on the throne of your heart. The voice that must lead you is the voice of God, and His voice does not sound like frantic panic. It sounds like truth. It sounds like wisdom. It sounds like conviction without chaos. It sounds like love without confusion. It sounds like strength without violence. It sounds like direction without torment. So learn to recognize the difference. Anything that drives you into constant torment is not the shepherding voice of God. Anything that destroys your ability to breathe, think, pray, and trust is not coming to lead you well. God may convict you, He may stretch you, He may call you higher, but He does not shepherd through confusion and panic. He leads with truth and peace, even when the path is challenging. This is why inner discernment matters so much. Not every urgent feeling deserves your obedience. Not every fearful thought deserves your attention. Not every dark prediction deserves your agreement. Some thoughts need to be interrupted. Some feelings need to be surrendered before they become your direction. Some inner narratives need to be replaced entirely, and maybe that is part of your next season. Not just asking God to change your circumstances, but asking Him to renew your mind, to retrain your inner life, to help you stop partnering with thoughts that keep you chained, to help you stop calling fear wisdom, to help you stop making panic feel normal, to help you live from a deeper place. Because transformation is not only about what happens around you, it is also about what happens within you. Some of the greatest miracles in a person's life are invisible at first. A calmer mind, a steadier heart, a slower reaction, a deeper trust, a gentler inner voice, a stronger refusal to spiral, a new ability to wait without collapsing, a new ability to pray instead of panic, a new ability to sleep in peace after giving the burden to God. Do not underestimate those miracles. They change everything. They change the way you enter conversations. They change the way you make decisions. They change the way you experience uncertainty. They change the way your body carries stress. They change the way your relationships feel. They change the spiritual atmosphere of your whole life. And perhaps most beautifully, they make more room for joy. Because anxiety does not only steal peace, it also steals joy. It makes it hard to fully enjoy the blessings that are already present, because the mind is always scanning for what might go wrong next. It interrupts gratitude. It numbs delight. It turns beautiful moments into temporary pauses between worries. But when God begins to heal anxiety at the root, joy starts returning in simple ways. You laugh more freely. You notice beauty again. You become more present with people. You stop rushing through good moments. You begin to feel safer inside your own life. Not because life has become perfect, but because your soul is no longer constantly preparing for disaster. That is a gift worth praying for. And let me say something important to the person who feels ashamed because they have struggled with anxiety for a long time. You are not less loved because peace has been hard for you. You are not less spiritual because your mind gets tired. You are not failing God because you are learning slowly. Healing often comes in layers. Peace often grows in practice. Trust often deepens through repetition. Do not turn your struggle into an identity that imprisons you forever. But also, do not condemn yourself for the process. Bring the process to God. Let Him work patiently. Let Him teach you slowly if necessary. Let Him meet you in the exact places where fear still has influence. He is not rushing away from your weakness. He is moving toward it with grace. And maybe the compliment your heart needs today is this: you do not have to become someone else in order to walk in peace. You simply have to let God form you more deeply into who you were always meant to be. A person who trusts Him. A person who is not ruled by tomorrow. A person who knows how to return to His presence. A person who can feel deeply without drowning. A person who can carry responsibility without carrying despair. A person who can wait with dignity. A person who can surrender and still move forward. That person is being formed in you even now. So keep going, keep returning, keep surrendering, keep praying, keep slowing down, keep listening, keep choosing truth over panic, keep choosing presence over projection, keep choosing faith over the endless habit of fear. There will come a day when you notice that the things that once shook you completely no longer have the same power. The storm may still come, but your roots will be deeper. The uncertainty may still appear, but your reflex will be different. The delay may still stretch, but you will not collapse inside it the way you used to. And when that happens, you will realize God has been doing a hidden work all along. He has been teaching you how to live unburdened. He has been teaching you how to breathe again. He has been teaching you that peace is not found in control, but in communion with Him. He has been teaching you that everything truly meant for your life does not need fear to arrive. It needs trust. So as you continue from this point, let your soul hold on to this final assurance. The future is not asking you to be fearless in your own power. It is asking you to be faithful with God at your side. This day is not asking you to solve your whole life. It is asking you to walk with God through this moment. This season is not asking you to understand every mystery. It is asking you to trust the one who understands them all. And the blessing you are waiting for, the peace you are longing for, the answer you are hoping for, the restoration you are praying for, the healing you need, the door that belongs to your calling, all of it is safest in the hands of God. So relax, not with indifference, but with trust, not with laziness, but with surrender, not with denial, but with faith. God is still writing your story, and He writes better than fear ever could.